Mr. President, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you very much, Greta.
Mr. President, last February it was reported that you said that you had downplayed the coronavirus, and then recently you said that you have upplayed it. So downplayed or upplayed?
Well, it's totally a mischaracterization, and it just keeps going on and on over nothing. I don't want people to panic. So I'm not going to stand out there and say, oh, everyone's going to die, everyone's going to die. I'm the leader of a country. It's so ridiculous. Winston Churchill, when he stood on buildings, he was saying how wonderful everything was, and be brave and be smart and don't panic. In the meantime, bombs were being dropped down on London. So what I said was exactly perfect. And the news goes around, and there's Woodward, who frankly, I mean, I watched him, he's sort of exhausted. I look at him, he's been, I think he's been very discredited over this. The people that read it, the people that understand it, say I said exactly the right thing. I also said last night, but I said previously, let my actions speak, because I closed down the border to China, which was heavily infected. Everybody told me don't do it was way too early. Thousands of people would have died had I not done that. Thousands, tens of thousands of people. Then I closed down the border to Europe way early, and everyone said, oh, he closed down the border. Then they all admitted I was right. Even Sleepy Joe, he said he was right. He was right in doing it, but he called me xenophobic when I did it. They were months behind me, so I was way early. My actions speak louder than my words, but my words were exactly perfect.
You mentioned China. Has China been straight with us about the virus?
No, because when I spoke to President Xi, he told me he had it under control. That was very early, in all fairness. Maybe he didn't even know, but I think he probably did. But they told me they had it under control. They would constantly say that. We wanted to send over our doctors, you know that, and they didn't want that. And by the time people started seeing all of the dead bodies in China, I said, that's not under control. And that's when I banned China from coming into this country.
Should there be a consequence to China? Has China contacted you and say, look, we're sorry that we
I'm
didn't...
I'm not doing much with China right now. I'm not happy with China. What they did is incredible to the world, not only to us, 188 countries all over the world. We made a great trade deal with China. It's already proven to be a great trade deal. The farmers are doing better than they've ever done, the manufacturers, but I consider that very small relative to what happened to us and what happened to Europe and what happened to the world.
What's the role of WHO in this?
Well, we were paying them $500 million a year. China was paying them $39 million a year, and they were China-centric. They were just in the bag for China, and I terminated our role. Let's see if I changed that, but I terminated it. We saved $500 million. We were paying them many times more than China, and they weren't treating us properly. Now, this is long before I came here. This is for years. But why would we pay them so much? China was paying $39 million. We were paying $500 million. And China had more sway than the U.S. And we didn't let that happen.
I assume that the Democratic base is going to vote for Vice President Biden. Republican base is going to vote for you. That leaves the independents, the undecided. And, of course, the wild card is to get out to vote, to get your base out to vote. 67% of the American people in a recent ABC poll said they're skeptical of how you handled the coronavirus. What do you say to them,
well, first of
the
all,
independent and...
I think we're going to get a lot of Democrats voting for us because of law and order, because they're tired of seeing what they're seeing. Every Democrat city, or most of them, and if you look at the top 25, even the top 50, they're all practically all Democrat cities that are having this horrible time with law and order. The Republican cities are doing very well, because the Democrats have no clue when it comes to law and order. What they've done with no cash bail and so many other things, I mean, that's the least of it. And they're unsafe. So I think we're having a lot of Democrats coming over as Republicans, and you see that. We just had a poll. Rasmussen just came out. I'm at 52%. They came out with another poll. I'm even higher. There was another poll that just came out. I'm even higher. I think we're winning Florida. I think we're winning Pennsylvania. I think we're winning North Carolina. I think we're winning New Hampshire. I think we're winning Michigan. We were 2 up in Michigan. It's the same. Here we go again, the same thing as last time. They come out with these fake polls saying this or that. There's no way we're losing Florida. Florida's been so strong. I've been great for Florida. Look at Florida, the best year they ever had. But every state had the best year before the plague came in. Every state had virtually, I think every single state had the best year they ever had when I was before the plague, before the China plague came in. So, and now, by the way, most importantly, we're building that up to a level that's going to be greater than it was before. If you look at, this is a super V. They were saying it can't be a V, and now they all admit it's a V. It's beyond a V. We're setting records on jobs. The jobs that came in over the last 4 months, 10.4 million jobs. That's a record the likes of which nobody has ever seen before. Our retail numbers are the best they've ever been. Retailing, best they've ever been. No, I think we're going to have a super V. I think next year is going to be great. And I mean, even more so, I think our third quarter that we're in right now, which gets announced just prior, like around November 1st, maybe a little before that, I think our third quarter is going to be incredible. And that's going to be very good before the election because people see I know how to handle the economy like nobody else. I opened it up. It became the best we've ever had. And then we closed it. We had to. By closing it, we saved 2.5 million lives, in my opinion. 2.5 million lives. If we would have gone herd, and I'm fine with herd at a certain level, but not then, we would have had 2.5 million people dead, according to many people. I would say that's your average. Could have been 2 million, it could have been 1.5 million, but a lot different than the numbers we have right now. So, no, I think we handled it incredibly well. We did ventilators that nobody thought you could do. Now we're supplying them to the world. We have vaccines coming in a matter of moments. I mean, literally, it's very close. Great companies, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and others. We have vaccines that nobody would have had. If you go to the last administration, the FDA was a disaster. They were a disaster on the swine flu. They had the swine flu, which is H1N1, that Joe Biden calls N1H1, but he's not right about that. I can't remember the two letters. What happens is, on the swine flu, they were a disaster. In fact, the man that was in charge of it said, we were a disaster. We didn't know what we were doing.
Speaker Pelosi says that you handled the coronavirus poorly and that the Abraham Accords is a distraction to...
It's so incredible. It's so unfair. No matter what you do, they say it was done poorly. They'll say, we just had record numbers of employment. Well, it should have been more. We just did something else great. Well, it should have been better. Makes no difference. You could say anything. I know Schumer, we made this incredible trade deal on something, and Schumer said he should have kept the tariffs, and I did keep the tariffs. I kept all of them.
Why is there such a bad relationship?
Well, it's just bad because there's a tremendous animosity. I will say this. It was coming together before the plague came in. We were getting calls from Democrats wanting to get together because everybody had a job. We had the best employment numbers we have ever had. We had the best numbers we ever had, best stock market. By the way, stock market right now is setting records. It's records. And we're rounding the corner on the plague. I mean, on this whole horrible thing, we're rounding the corner. And it is a disgraceful thing that China did to the world, I will tell you. But we're rounding the corner on COVID. There's 15 different names. There's 22 different names for this thing. I like best China virus because it's the most accurate. But we're rounding the corner. And the stock market is at essentially an all-time high. Looks like it's going up still further. And if people didn't sell their stocks when the China virus came in, which some people did, unfortunately, but if they didn't, they're making more money than ever before. Their 401ks are great. Nobody else could have done that.
There are a lot of people who don't have 401ks. The stock market's great for me. It's great for people who have money in the stock market. But we've got a lot of problem with people who don't have jobs, and we don't have a stimulus bill from Capitol Hill. I know they signed an executive order late in July to try to bridge that gap until we do have one, but we don't have one, and that money that you authorize is about to run out. So what about the stimulus bill?
Well, first of all, the stock market's for everyone. You have people that own 5 stocks of a company. It's for everybody. And so,
well, there are a lot of people who don't have any stocks. I mean, people who work at a Subway might not.
But you're talking about 60 or 70% of the population in one form or another has stocks. And if the stock market's good, you talk about an indicator, that means that companies are good, the big companies are good, and they're putting out jobs. So it's a good thing for the jobs market. And our jobs market's been amazing. Look, we just set a record in 4 months, a 4-month record. And there's not even a second, a 4-month record. 10.4 million jobs. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Nope. But if the stock market weren't good, you wouldn't have that record. So it's an early indicator and a very strong indicator, but a lot of people benefit from that. As far as stimulus is concerned, the Democrats want to give and bail out states that are Democrat states, Democrat-run, that are in big trouble. They're always in trouble. Their taxes are too high. Their crime is too high. And they want to use this to bail out the states. And we want money to go to the people. Very simple. We want money to go to the people because it wasn't their fault. And we'll see how it all works out. I will tell you, there's a chance that something could happen as of the last 4 or 5 hours, because I think the Democrats are seeing the light. We'll find out.
In terms of working with the House, are you able to work with Speaker Pelosi at all?
If I have to, I'll work with her. They did a totally immoral impeachment. So it's always hard for me to say I want to deal with this woman, because it should have never happened. It was based on a perfect phone call. I got impeached over a phone call that was perfect with a man I didn't know, the Ukrainian president, the president of Ukraine, and I got impeached. They actually impeached me. 196-0 Republican vote, and then the senators 52.5 to a half. If you look at it, I got impeached over a perfect phone call. You study that call, lawyers have said that you did nothing wrong. People get impeached over big deals. They impeached me over a phone call with the president of the Ukraine that was a perfect call. So I will say that it's always difficult when you see, when you have that kind of person that you're dealing with, because it was a disgrace. Now, they thought the call was much different because they believe Schiff, who's a scoundrel, but they believe Schiff when he stood up in Congress and read a call that bore no relationship to the actual call. Fortunately, they transcribed the call. Otherwise, it would have been my word against this sleazebag Schiff, and he should have been prosecuted for what he did. He got up and he repeats a phone call that didn't exist. 8 times quid pro quo. There was no quid pro quo. No, but you understand that. 8 times quid pro quo, and there was no quid pro quo. He made up a phone call. He repeated it to Congress. He repeated it all over the place, and it wasn't true. I got impeached over that. So when you say get along, not that easy to get along because they're scoundrels. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned a prosecution. There's a report that they've opened a grand jury investigation into former National Security Advisor John Bolton, and I think you tweeted in June that he should be sent to jail. Do you worry that this looks political and may have an impact on how?
I don't think it's political. John Bolton revealed a lot of stuff that he shouldn't have. He probably took the job for that reason. He did a bad job. I think he's incompetent. All he wants to do is go to war with everybody. But actually, he served me well for only one reason. Everyone thought he was crazy. Everyone thought he was stupid, but they thought he was a nut job who only wanted to go to war. So when I brought him into a meeting with a foreign country, they assumed I was going to war, because John Bolton was one of the people that said, go into the Middle East. I mean, look, I don't know that he was a big force, frankly. He wasn't that respected, but he was one of the forces that said, go into the Middle East. That was the worst deal, the worst thing to happen, the worst decision made in the history of our country. We have spent $8 trillion on the Middle East. The place is a mess, just a total mess. I'm bringing it back, by the way. But the place, and I'm also bringing our soldiers back, as you know, very rapidly. We soon won't be there. And we don't need it anymore. We're energy independent, which is great. But I'm bringing our soldiers back. But John Bolton wanted to go into the Middle East. I asked him before he left, I said, so tell me, do you think it was a good decision when you went into Iraq? Yes, I do. I said, tell me why. Tell me why. He couldn't explain it. John Bolton is incompetent, okay? But here's what he did. He released classified information, highly classified information, and confidential information, all different categories. John Bolton should never have been allowed to do that. You know the young sailor that gave a picture, sent a picture home to his mother and other people? They go to jail for a long period of time. You can't do that. And that was not nearly as vital, as important as John Bolton. John Bolton is an incompetent person. And I'm telling you, all this maniac wanted to do is go to war. Let's go to war. Let's go to war. He was crazy. But I used him for my own purpose. But ultimately, we had to get rid of him.
All right. Who's next in the Middle East agreement? Which country do you think?
Well, we have a lot. We have, I'd say, 6 countries now that want to sign. We'll get them all. I think we'll get them all ultimately.
And how does that translate into? I mean, how do you tell the people, let's say, of Michigan, where you won by 11,000 votes or so, in terms of inspiring them to come out? How is this important to them?
Everything's important. Look, Michigan has car factories now. They didn't open a factory in 40 years. And we have factories now being built and have been built under my leadership. Michigan had the best year they ever had last year because of me. I got Prime Minister Abiy, a terrific guy. I got Prime Minister Abiy to build car factories. Germany, Japan. I said, you got to start building in our country now. We want you to build in our country. This is nonsense. Where you build your cars in Germany, you build your cars in Japan, you send them over here. In the meantime, our people aren't building cars. And that's why the unions are in favor, not the top people of the unions, because that's a whole different story. But the people in the unions know, they understand it. If you look at Ohio and Michigan and South Carolina and North Carolina and so many other places, we have energy there that's unbelievable what's happening. But car plants for Michigan, they've never had anything like this. They are doing great only because of what I did. And I think I won Michigan last time. I think this should be a lot easier to win it. And I just saw a poll where I'm 2 points up. Michigan's always hard for a Republican for whatever reason, but I guess I'm a little bit different kind of a Republican. The fact is that Michigan, I think I should win easily. With all the production, Michigan had the best year they've ever had prior to the China virus, and now they're going to be coming back strong. Now, the problem with Michigan is the governor has them in shutdown. They shouldn't be shut down. They should be opened up. The governor has them totally shut down, and it's purely political. And on November 4th, right after the election, the governor will say, okay, it's time to open up. She's trying to make the economy look as bad as possible. And that goes for North Carolina. That goes for Pennsylvania, where, by the way, we won a big case 2 days ago, where the court ruled it was unconstitutional to shut down the state, and, you know, to the level that they were doing it, but to shut down the state. And Pennsylvania is going to be opened up now because of it, because Democrat governors are trying to shut down states because they want to look as bad as possible for the election. With all of that, we're looking good. No, but with all of that,
would you include Wisconsin, where you won by 23,000 votes?
Well, that's another one. The governor's trying to shut down the state. There's no reason to shut it down. I mean, the states that are doing the best are not to shut down states. We did the right thing. We closed it up. We learned about this horrible disease, you know, how it affects seniors, and especially seniors that have problems. And we opened it up, and it's a super V. And we're going to have the best year economically next year that we've ever had, unless a Joe Biden got in and he'd raise taxes to a level that will strangle everything, and he'll put back regulations. So I cut more regulations than any president in history by far, no matter how long they served. We had the biggest tax cut in history. I've rebuilt our military. Our courts, we're going to have 300 judges at least by the time this term ends. So by the end of this term, we're going to have 300 federal judges. Nobody's ever heard of a thing like that. And 2 Supreme Court judges.
So what would be your plan for the next term if you say that you've done all this?
Well, I'll tell you, next term is very important because the Supreme Court, you could have 1, 2, 3, or 4 justices. You know, a lot of people say that's always the most important thing. I think the military probably is, but you know, I fully get it. You could have 1, 2, 3, or 4 Supreme Court justices, the next president, and we have conservative, good, solid people. I made a list. He can't make a list because he's got a bunch of radicals that would go into the Supreme. He would have radical left people, and he can't put that out because you couldn't be president if people saw that list. If people saw his real list, because Joe isn't running it. The radical left, Joe is gone. Let's face it. You know, we're all trying to be nice. I don't have to be nice anymore because he made up a phony military report where I said bad things on the graves of soldiers with many people around. They're crazy.
What's your debate?
It's called you know what it's called? Disinformation, and you understand that word. They make up a story and then they go with it. So I don't have to be nice. Joe is shot. He's mentally shot.
What's your debate strategy?
Just do a great job and debate on my record, because nobody has a record like I have. Look, in 3.5 years, I've done more than any other president in the first 3.5 years. And nobody even disputes that. When you look at what we've done, even Space Force, you know, we did Space Force. I didn't even used to talk about that. The wall is built, almost finished. The wall will be finished very soon. We have incredible numbers on the border. And we have other things to do. We're going to be coming out with immigration and various other things very soon.
Do you have any regrets? And I mean, as you look back with the 2020 hindsight, even how you handled the coronavirus, do you think to yourself, I wish I had done?
I think we did a great job with coronavirus, except in public relations. They spent so much time working. Look, we would have lost 2.5 million people, as I said. we're at 185, and it's too much. One person is too much because it should have never been allowed to happen by China. They should have never allowed it out. They stopped it from going into China, but they didn't stop it from going into us. We did a great job, except public relations-wise, my people got outplayed. Just like you said before, Nancy Pelosi said this or that. No matter what you do, if you say we did this, they say, well, it wasn't good enough. If you say we did that, this is like standard fare for the Democrats. They say it wasn't good enough. We did a phenomenal job on coronavirus, a phenomenal job. Ventilators, vaccines. What do you see? We almost have the vaccine. A Biden campaign, a Biden administration wouldn't have had it for 3 or 4 years. Okay, you know that. They couldn't get anything through the FDA. But take a look at their swine flu. They had the swine flu, which was much easier than what we had, much lesser. They had the swine flu. It was a total disaster. And the person that said it was the man that headed it up. It was so bad they gave up. They totally gave up. Now they're telling us how to run things. It doesn't work that way, Greta.
Mr. President, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.